players left. Pulls up, looking for the lead, and got it. Jalen Williams, 2 seconds, 1:11, 1:09. Now SGA, probing, piercing, spinning, hanging for the lead, and SGA knocks it down. The Thunder finally get the defensive stop, and SGA puts them in front.
I'm Kendrick Williams. You're listening to Topic Thunder.
That is right. Welcome in, everybody. You heard Kendrick Williams. You are listening to the OKC Topic Thunder. I'm your host today. Gosh, I'm sorry. I'm getting used to the new video. Shout out Tyranny for the awesome intro, by the way. Absolutely killed it. But I'm your host, Dylan Hunter at Thunder Chats. We're part of the Believe Network, and this podcast is brought to you by betonline.ag. Now that that's out of the way, as I mentioned, Tyranny is here with us, the producer extraordinaire and the guy that crafted that beautiful intro video. Tyranny, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here with our special guests, who Dylan will so eloquently introduce in a minute. NBA season's kicked off. The Celtics just had one of the greatest shooting performances of all time, which then ended up being a hilarious ending with like Matt Walsh, or what's his name? Walsh, first name I'm forgetting. And Jordan Walsh, thank you. And Tillman shooting threes to try to get the record and nothing working. And it was a great sort of game in that sense. And then we're about to see the Lakers. Hopefully, I don't know. I haven't been tuning in, but hopefully
it looks like a different sport out there right now.
Yeah.
Watching
very
the way
different.
the Celtics reined in like 40 plus points in the first quarter as opposed to what's going on over here right now. It looks like a different sport so far.
Yeah. It's very, very black and white in that sense. But yeah, it's been fun just to watch basketball again. Thunder basketball's coming in a couple days, and just happy to talk about it a little bit more with everyone here.
Absolutely. And also joining us, as you heard him, the man, the myth, legend, the Underscone, Connor. What up, Con?
Not much, man. Yeah, just excited. NBA hoops are back. It's a shame we got to wait till literally the last game of like the first 3 days to see the Thunder hoop. But I'm excited, man. It's going to be a great year. High expectations, and I think they're going to live up to them. But yeah, the Celtics just decided to go out and hit nearly 30 in their first game. It was really funny watching them miss, I think, their last 13 or 14 in a row, just chucking to get the record. The craziest part is it had me thinking like the Rockets did that, but like 2 times that in that playoff game. Like it really puts into perspective how many threes in a row they missed. Not to throw a shot at the Rockets out of nowhere, but I guess,
why not?
Yeah, why not? It's the start of the season.
Right.
Why not? So yeah, man, feeling good though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Thunder being the last game feels like an oversight and a weird choice, but something that's not a weird choice is getting to the intro of these awesome guests that we have on. So joining us today are 2 men residing in the 405. One man is a beat reporter for the Oklahoman, co-host of the Thunder Buddies podcast, and one of the most talented writers to come through the Thunder beat, and is actually joining us late tonight before he gets on an early flight to follow the Thunder beat. One man is a beat reporter for the Daily Thunder, co-host and reoccurring guest of the Daily Thunder podcast, a Thunder insider for Franchise Sports and KREF Sports Radio. One man gets to travel to every NBA city with the team. The other has predicted on this very podcast the last 2 Thunder lottery picks. One man is the pickup version of Ray Allen. The other could be considered a pickup version of Patrick Beverly for this trash talk. But they are both in the who's who of Thunder media. Phenomenal follows on Twitter and returning friends of the Top of Thunder podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, here with us to preview potentially the most exciting season of Thunder history, Brandon Rahbar and Joe Lorenzi.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. You absolutely nailed our pickup hoops counterparts.
No,
Appreciate
he didn't.
that.
No, he didn't. Of course, you're going to say that because he gave you Ray Allen. I don't know whether I want to defend Pat Bev's image or talk up the other comps I was getting. I was getting called Rondo the last time we played. I'd rather take Rondo. But I'm going to give love to Pat Bev. I know it's not going to be popular among listeners. But Pat Bev's career, his role, I always want to shed light on that and the value he had as a player. Of course, now that I'm being comp to him, I'm going to do it more. So I don't know if I want to accept that or what.
He's a big team guy.
Yeah, and you know what? The trash talking aspect, I'll take that. I embrace that. I'm fine with that.
Absolutely.
Ray Allen.
You could have Dylan Brooks. You could have Kevin Garnett. Is Kevin Garnett better for you, Joel?
Yeah, but it's not accurate. I'm not gonna take that. So you don't gotta butter me up now. You said Pat Bev the first time.
That's Dylan. That's not something you can put out there and take back right away.
Yeah,
you got to
it's too late.
You got to build back up the relationship after that shot that you threw, man. That's crazy.
Unacceptable.
It's all good. We've got opportunities to build it back up. But hey, Joel, Brandon, we're excited to have you guys on here. Brandon, you've been on here many times. Joel, last year was the first time you were on, but it was an awesome time, awesome conversation that we had with you, and we're excited. Obviously, Thunder fans are very excited for this season. Chomping at the bit, even though the NBA doesn't seem as excited for the Thunder as we do. We want to have a ultimate season preview and there's not two better guys that I'd rather have on this podcast. So now that we've, kind of sang your praises after, we compared you to some Thunder villains in history, let's get into the content here. So kind of starting off, previewing the Thunder season. Head of the snake, man, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And the story out of the offseason is his three-point shooting volume has increased. His shot looks quicker. It looks smoother. One, do you think that's here to stay? And what do you make of the improvement in his efficiency? And is this the type of development that can help him leapfrog the competition in MVP discussions? And we're going to start with Joel, since I kind of took some shots earlier.
Yeah, no, it's a loaded question, but I think it is here to stay. I mean, when that guy dedicates a summer to working on something, when he isolates something, the data he's given us is to believe that it's real. And from everybody I'll talk to around him, that was something that he actually dedicated himself to in the summer. Whether that's with Team Canada, he's bringing his own trainer wherever he's at. The guys he's been working with. That he's familiar with in Toronto when he goes to work out there earlier in the summer before Team Canada, he's working on that stuff. Like, he spent a good chunk of the summer working on that. And in his words, it was because he was bored. But really, I mean, if you ask me, it was his last Infinity Stone. If we're talking about the MVP discussion, I mean, he was already unguardable, but now he's like impossible. If you think that's real. And personally, I do, based on the volume in the preseason. I think he finished 7 to 10 from three. That might be wrong, but I think it was 7 to 10. And if you look at the shot selection, generally he had one game where he's literally coming down the court, hezzy pulling. Then there are catch and shoots where it's not just regular wide open catch and shoots. There are some uncomfortable catch and shoots mixed in there, shots that he wouldn't have took a year ago, let alone when he started with the Thunder. So there's a different level of comfortability in taking some of those shots, and I think that's just from the work this summer. So I absolutely believe in it, and I think it's absolutely I think it'll be the reason if it extends over the course of a year why he probably has the best chances at MVP.
Yeah, I agree with Joel. We always said with Shai, like, what if this dude had a three-point shot? Like, that felt like the only thing that was missing. Like, we've seen, before seasons past where he shot a good percentage. And I think that he's always been a good shooter. It's just he takes tough ones. Like, he had that season where he experimented with a sidestep, step back, and that kind of like platooned his three-point percentage. And he's never really had much of a chance to have a lot of catch and shoot threes. He's always taken, more difficult threes, just given the nature of his role. But like Joel said, like, seeing him come up and shoot those hezzy threes, those pull-up threes, hand in his face. And we saw him take a couple of corner threes, catch and shoot threes. It's a small sample size, but like Joel said, it's something he's worked on. And when he works on something, he's serious about it. He improves at something every summer. And it looks like so far that the three-point shot is what he worked on and improved on this summer. I agree with Joel. To me, if there was one thing that you could have added to Shai's game, it would have been a three-point shot and like a higher volume. And I think the higher volume is here to stay. And I think, some of those shots that he take in the preseason that he wouldn't have taken before are here to stay as well. So, yeah, I'm with Joel on this.
Yeah, I mean, you look at a guy like Jason Tatum tonight who, he's a scorer. He impacts the game in a million different ways, and he's a tough cover as well. But increasing the volume on his three-point shot and, kind of fixing his jump shot, smoothing out his jump shot. I mean, we saw evidence tonight of like how deadly, that kind of change could be to a player of that caliber. So, yeah, I'm very excited to see, if the work that Shea put in the lab, kind of carries throughout the season. And it's just kind of crazy. Like, obviously, in the offseason, as you guys said, he goes in the lab and he, puts in the work and he adds stuff to his game. But we didn't see it to like that level for Team Canada. Like, he was taking threes, but he wasn't taking like super high volume threes. And honestly, the shot didn't even look as good as it does now in the preseason. So the small window of time that he's had from being eliminated from the Olympics to the start of the preseason and training camp, whatever he's done to that jump shot is just miracle work.
It's the
it helps everyone around him too. Are you talking about Mikhail's jumper?
I'm sorry. It's like the anti-Mikhail. Sorry, go ahead, Cohen.
Nah, man. I was tweeting out, shout out to Mikhail Kid Gilchrist at this point.
So rude.
Yeah, so I mean, it helps everyone else too around Shea, like to have that jumper, because if Dub's going to get more on-ball reps, Chet's going to be handling the ball more. Those guys being able to kick out to Shea for those more comfortable catch and shoot opportunities, if the shot is more consistent, is big for them too, because they can't sag off of Shea. Not that they ever would, to give him a little bit of a lane, but it just makes the defense think even more. They're like, okay, well, now this guy, if I give him any space, he can either drive at me or he can knock down a 3-point shot at, like, say it's like a 38% clip or anything like that. Now what do? It makes a team that already was the best 3-point shooting team in the league last season even more dangerous with the volume, and now the best player, who's kind of just been known as the best downhill guard and one of the best mid-range scorers in the league, now also shooting threes. It really does make him one of the most complete offensive players in the league, and one of the most dominant scorers potentially we've seen in the league in a very long time. Like, don't really know what you do against him if that 3-point shot, especially with the pull-up, is the way that it is. Or the way that it seems, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like I know we're a Thunder podcast, we're biased, but it really feels like if that's here to stay, I just don't see how you can keep him out of not just like the MVP discussions, but like seriously the front runner for it. And again, I know like the betting odds, I think he's still either second or third behind Doncic, but like for you guys, I guess thinking about what he needs to do to sort of leapfrog him, Doncic, that is, like, what do you guys think about like what he needs to, where he needs to take it for the, the voters to say like, okay, he is the MVP this year, taking away the, team productivity and expectations, just solely like what Shea has to do to set himself apart from where I think everyone expects Doncic to be right now at the MVP level.
It's a tough conversation because you look at last year. I think last year, and Embiid really put a real ripple in history, I think, because that dude was the clear front runner. There would have been no conversation, but instead he created this real nuanced conversation about the MVP, maybe the most nuanced ever, where you're looking at as many different angles and arguments for as many different candidates as I can remember in recent memory. Like, even if you really thought the race at the end was really Jokic versus Shea, or Jokic versus Luka, wherever you stood, guys at least had, like, Tatum had, his team was the best in the league. There was an outside argument there. Brunson had some buzz. And so now I think the conversation is so nuanced. Like, you look at the year Shea had, 31-6-6 on a 57-win team. That's guaranteed MVP virtually every year the league has existed. But the conversation's kind of changed now. There are so many different variables. You got to consider voters, voter bias. Jokic is 3 out of 4 MVPs now. So the conversation is, there's so many different variables to the conversation now. And I think Luka, I think there's a general sense, and this has nothing to do with the game, nothing to do with statistics. I think there's a general sense from people that Luka's coming. He deserves one. He caught up in the conversation late last year. And so he already goes into the year with some competitive advantage. And then there's obviously the people who view things through market. Shea doesn't have that going for him. But I think people are generally so high on the Thunder now. And they're, so many people's West favorite. And Shea is really like consensus from what I've seen. Don't ask NBA on TNT, but from what I've seen, he's consensus like top 5 player in the world.
Crazy.
I think all that considered, I think they just have to win the same amount of games and he'll get it, because I would bet against the Mavs winning 57 games. I think if they're in the same range record-wise, I don't see how he couldn't get it, because I would vote against Jokic getting it because of voter bias and voter fatigue, which is a real thing,
Right.
even if we want to argue against it. And like all the advanced stats that give Jokic a continuous argument, I just don't know that people are going to hold on to that this year. I think it's firmly between Shea and Luka, and it comes down to record and Shea delivering the same type of year.
It also helps that Shea's advanced stats are also getting more and more insane as time goes on. Like last year, he was in those conversations too. Yeah, I'm a believer if the Thunder win like right around the same amount of games or get above 60, there's really no argument against him, assuming he puts up anything similar to the season he just had, especially if the 3-point shot is there. That gives more of a conversation. And that really could just be it. Like if Shea just hits more threes, even if the numbers are the exact same, the conversation to me is going to be like, oh, well, now he is the best player because you can't guard him. There's nothing you can do, when that already kind of was the case. But they're going to be like, oh, like this little nugget of information, this is what's going to put him over someone else for me. So I really think they just have the same record, and he'll probably get it done.
Yeah, if the Thunder are the number 1 seed in the West 2 straight years, and Shea puts up over 30 points on the efficiency that he is, 5-6 rebounds and assists, I think it's his. I really do. Just because Luka's going to put up massive numbers. That's what Luka does. He puts up, like, the raw numbers are going to be massive. But if the Mavs are second, third, fourth in the West, and the Thunder are the 1 seed, and they're flirting with 60 games 2 straight years, and this is still the youngest team like in the West, I think it goes to Shea. I mean, he was clearly the number 2 guy last year, and I think he really did have a great argument for winning the MVP. I think if he repeats the numbers and record and seed, it's got to be Shea. I don't really think it needs to change much. Just like status quo, I think it would be hard to ignore him doing the same.
I got to say too, I can't understate this. We're as a viewer base, we're such a like prisoner of the moment, like viewer base that, I think that March-ish area, like, I mean, Shea was the most consistent superstar in the league last year. Like he broke the records to show it. But what killed him was, I think, that stretch where he came back from injury, maybe rushed himself back from injury, hit the game winner at Madison Square Garden. We're such a what have you done for me lately league that he missed that stretch of 5 or 6 games when Jokic was still good, when Luka was popping off. That's when Luka really caught steam. I think if a guy is good at that time, and I'm not saying, obviously Shea was out. If they're both playing, it's a different scenario. But it also comes down to that end of the year, who's picking up steam then. I mean, we really got to consider all the things that went right for Shea and still didn't allow him to get the award. I don't think it'll be as difficult this year, but that can't be understated how prisoner of the moment we are as viewers. I didn't vote last year. I was offered a vote. I chose not to. We're not going to get into that, but it was just like there's so many variables. It was such a nuanced discussion. It was so difficult, maybe the most difficult MVP in recent years, to the point where I thought, Jokic was great. Obviously, it wasn't his best MVP though. And in previous years, that wouldn't have been Jokic's MVP based on the way people viewed voter fatigue. But I think because of the ongoing conversation of voter fatigue, people were like, well, no, we don't have voter fatigue. Watch this. Like it became that almost, at least for some people who maybe were lazier with their vote. I'm not going to single people out. I imagine there were people who watched less basketball than I did, and people who watched only their teams most of the year. A lot of that comes down to March, April too, like that end of the year, more than we think. So,
yeah, real quick, I want to say you could have saved us and given Shea an MVP, but I'm not mad about it whatsoever. It's fine.
Whatever.
But no, I was gonna say the same thing. Is that the month stretch where Shea had the injury bothering him and the points per game didn't tank, but he was averaging like consistently 31.1, and then it went down to just above 30 over that stretch. So if over that stretch he's not hurt, like there's a chance he ends up winning it. So yeah, it's one of those scenarios where it's just the stretch run. I want to go ahead and move on now to Chet. Kind of just asking y'all, like, what growth do you expect from him from year 1 to year 2? I've been out there many times, and I'm sure Dylan and Tyranny agree with me here that Chet's going to have a really good season, that it's going to be a big year of growth and development now going into his actual sophomore season in the NBA. So kind of what are y'all looking for from Chet? Specific areas of growth from year 1 to year 2? Brandon, you can go ahead and start.
Yeah, what I've noticed from Chet this preseason is how much more aggressive to the rim in the paint he's being, how much more physical he's being, and how the Thunder early in these preseason games are like feeding Chet down low. Like Chet can take more threes, and Chet is a true weapon as a 5 that can stretch the floor, space the floor, and bring a big out to the perimeter. So that's not going to change. He's still going to be that guy. But I do think that Chet, from what we see in the preseason, how he's played, I expect his physicality and his aggressiveness at the rim to continue. Like his free throw shoot, like he is shooting so many free throws in the preseason. Like he's initiating so much contact down low. I just expect him to be more physical. And I think that'll continue throughout his career as he puts on strength, as he puts on muscle. I think we'll see him become more and more that guy. But then on the flip side, hopefully his 3-point volume increases as well. Like we've talked a lot about Shea and J-Dub's 3-point volume increasing, which they will, I believe. But Chet can take more threes as well. So I think just his overall offensive production is going to go up.
No doubt. I mean, Brandon hit on the head with the rim stuff. I noted this on Twitter. I think after the third preseason game, his second appearance, that he by then he already had 2 halves where he attempted 8 free throws, which you look at last year, his whole season, that would tie for the 4th most he shot in any game. And this is one game he did it in the preseason in a quarter, and another he did it in a half. So there's a clear emphasis there. He's approached that differently. Aaron Wiggins said he saw the work off rip as soon as they were back for the summer. And there's been conversations about, the conscious effort of finding Chet as a roller. I think that was one of the issues in that Dallas series was that, there was tunnel vision at times, or, because they slipped so many screens last year that when those actions were broken down by Dallas switching or, whatever way they chose to defend it, the lanes that their ball handlers did get, if Chet would pop or replace at the 3-point line, he wasn't getting fouled. And so, and that includes as a roller too. And so now that's changed. Chet mentioned today that part of that is, some of the stuff they introduced with Hartenstein, finding him as a roller because of the player he is. That's kind of helped guys recognize those sequences and recognize that. So Chet all around, Chet barely got up any threes at all in the preseason, which I think was something people were looking for. I didn't mean for that video to blow up that I posted where I thought his jumper looked different. People were like, crapping on his jumper. I just thought it looked. My tweet was literally that it looked different, and people were like, "Oh my gosh, this new Chet shot is trash." I didn't realize it was a drill, but I also didn't proclaim it as his new shot.
You almost destroyed Thunder Twitter with that one video. I don't know if you realize that.
I had people in my YouTube comments on my season prediction video where I picked the Thunder to win it all. They were like, "Oh, but have you seen Chet's new jumper? Like, it's bad. He's going to be bad now." Like, it got all the way out there. So you cost Shea an MVP. You ruined Chet's reputation. It's okay, man. I'm not mad.
All right,
I'm not mad at all.
Yeah, I'm the Stephen A of the beat, I guess. But but yeah, so I think people were expecting to see more threes from him preseason, which didn't really happen because he was just so forceful getting to the rim, so intentional. And I think that's easily something he could do. I've been seeing conversations about him and Lively all summer. And I think the conversations are fair, just in that, Lively is going to be really great at who he has to be in his role. He's a perfect Luka player. He plays with the perfect guy to accentuate who he is. Chet doesn't really have that. I think him and Dub and Shea perfectly coexist. Maybe not perfectly accentuate each other like Luka and Lively. So the conversation is different. But Chet's, I think, going to elevate his profile just off what he's going to be able to do for himself in the system. Just getting to the rim, putting more arc on his shot, apparently. And so he just looks more intentional and looks improved. I think he's in for a monster year.
What's up?
Yeah, I think what's also kind of an interesting point too, like you mentioned, Luka and Derek Lively, kind of a perfect match. I don't think they're necessarily a perfect match, but I'm very interested to see, in addition to Shea and Dub, the sort of pick and roll with Hartenstein and Chet. I think that's kind of something we saw a lot in the or not a lot, but a few times in the preseason. Obviously with Hartenstein out now, we have to wait a little bit, but definitely something I think that would be fun to explore as well, and kind of open up his game besides just, added volume of shooting. The one thing that I think was a big area of or not an area of concern, but just a new question that we're probably going to be asking for a couple of weeks moving into the season is sort of the new lineup. So obviously with Giddey gone, who was in the starting rotation, I think that's the question is like, who's getting the usage, who's getting the minutes. I think a lot of people are thinking, Dub is going to take a lot of that usage. He's going to take that leap from year 2 to year 3. I was kind of wondering what you guys thought, if you think that's true, or if you see guys like Caruso, Kaysen getting more of those minutes than we expect. What are you kind of thinking about the usage distribution with sort of Giddey out of the picture now? And we'll start with Joel this time.
It's interesting with Giddey's usage. Obviously, he was higher on the team than most would have liked. I think a lot of the way his possessions ended, the ones with his uses were, early on in the possession, the Thunder got the indication that, okay, he was going to be so left open that, like, okay, why not shoot? Let him get his confidence up early on. Or possessions ended with, a team rotating so well that Giddey would be that shooter that was left open. And so I think in turn, and this doesn't even have to be just Dub, I think you'll see earlier actions in possessions. I think you'll see earlier shots go up. I think Dub was practicing that a lot in the preseason, just getting, chucking early threes up. I think those will replace some of the Giddey possessions. And if it's an end of clock possession, I think this is Thunder fans won't dislike this as much as they dislike Thunder possessions ending with a Giddey 3. But I think teams, their best bet is probably like rotating until they force the ball into the corner with Dort. And even Dort shot really well last year on pretty good volume. And so it's a pick your poison thing. I think they're going to be most comfortable with him because in the Dallas series, you started to see them force him to make decisions out of the corner and stuff like that. But if that's, what you're getting instead of, a Giddey and a clock 3, I think most people are happy with that. And then the other possessions are like, Caruso spotting up, Dub getting up early 3, Shea coming across half court and chucking something up. I think a lot of those possessions will turn positive.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that as far as like usage goes, like who's going to soak that up, I do think Dub will take more of that on too, especially if Shea and Dub stagger, which they will. And then, the Thunder talked about Kaysen as being more on ball and creating some, and talked about even Chet doing that. We saw a lot of Isaiah Hartenstein. Obviously, is going to miss, the first 5 weeks of the season, but we saw a lot of playmaking from Hartenstein. And look, the Thunder have purposely gone out and drafted and signed and traded for guys who are ball movers that like they want the whole team to be guys that, are kind of playmakers. It's almost like, like the NFL is running back by committee. It's almost like I feel like outside of Shea, the Thunder are going to be like playmaker by committee. So I think we'll kind of see some of that. And like Joel said, I just think that the overall shot selection will be better because you swapped out. Like this isn't, I think that Josh Giddey is going to be a really good player for Chicago. I think that he's got a lot of potential and upside still. But as we know, he just didn't fit this particular Thunder team because he needs the ball in his hands to be effective, and you can't take the ball out of Shea and Dub's hands. So I do think that swapping him out for Caruso, who's a better catch and shoot guy, like this ball movement, and like Joel said, this Thunder team is going to put up, I think, more 3-point shots across the board. And, I think last year they're hunting for the absolute best shot. Like J-Dub had only shot 3.4 attempts per game last year, threes, because he always took a very good wide open shot. I think there'll be more, taking some of those good but not the best shots. But I think overall that raises the volume and efficiency, and I think it'll make the offense even better.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to kind of see how that. I mean, smart money is Dub, gets a lot of that work just because it's hard to see Shea getting more usage, but I can kind of see Shea's playmaking take a little bit of a step in addition to, all these other guys, just because, Shea was a point guard coming out of college. Like, the point guard's in his blood. And I even like when Josh Giddey was drafted in his Instagram bio, it used to say point guard, Oklahoma City Thunder. So like, he still considers himself a point guard, and he was just trying to make it fit with Josh Giddey. I wonder if we see, not like I don't think he'll ever get in like the 8-9 assist range, but like if he bumps his assist up to like high 6, like low 7 assists per game or something like that, I think that would, also be a nice little improvement for, kind of like the MVP consideration. But I mean, either way, man, like we said, there's a lot of candidates to kind of fill that spot for, the Josh Giddey size hole that we have in terms of the ball handling reps. But Joel, I want to go back to you real quick because I asked you this in the offseason. The smoke was kind of all around Isaiah Hartenstein to OKC. And, I was talking to you about it. You said you kind of highly doubted it. I wanted to ask, what was your main reason for the speculation? Because I feel like a lot of people had it. But in retrospect, how do you feel about the move based on, the offseason and what we've seen in the preseason in a small sample size?
Yeah, at the time, I think my view was so Boston coded. I'm willing to admit now. I think my view was kind of black and white at the time of what Hardenstein could be in this system. I'm a pretty big. It's crazy because I'm a pretty big fan, especially now, of like DHO spacing and what that unlocks for teams and vertical spacers. I personally am a big fan of Luka and Lively, and so I think I viewed it very black and white at the time. I didn't know if his impact would be, what we think it could be now, and I think also at the time, I just think like I was so after seeing Boston win a championship, I was so sure that the Thunder wasn't going to try to break his 5-out kind of mold, but I also don't think now I can admit that I don't think that's sustainable over the course of 48 minutes. You need versatility, you need different play styles, you need different looks for different teams. I think Boston knows that, even though for some reason all their bigs can shoot. And you just need that type of depth and versatility in this league if you want to win a championship. And Isaiah not only offers that, but he fits alongside some of these lineups too, which I'm not sure I was so optimistic about at the time. I always thought he was a good player. And then part of it was the money too. I mean, they had the money to blow.
Yeah.
But I was looking at the time like cheaper options for what they were trying to do at the time. But obviously Hardenstein works. And not only works, but he's seamless in some of these lineups. I mean, they're going to try to recreate the DiVincenzo bromance with Isaiah Joe. He's going to get guys like Shea and Dub, some of the clearest lanes they've ever gotten. The thing too, why I started to open up to the idea closest to the time they signed him, was that this team had no good screeners like at all. They slipped everything. Chet is a great pop option, and I thought he was better in the short roll than maybe the team's ball handlers gave him credit for. But Isaiah Hartenstein is a real brick wall, and so it's. I mean, I don't got to tell y'all that it's going to unlock so much for them. I just don't know that I saw all that at the time.
Yeah, no, I feel that, and I'm not calling you out. I'm just trying to kind of get the perspective of it all, and just kind of have a different angle of kind of getting into Isaiah Hartenstein talk, because I mean it's easy to say talk about how seamless of a fit Isaiah Hartenstein is. It was fun to kind of hear the devil's advocate point of view from it, but kind of getting back to that. I mean, Brandon, how have you felt about the iHeart experience? What are you most excited about with that so far?
Yeah, I looked at it this way. I thought that the Alex Caruso trade was a luxury for the Thunder. It made a strength of the Thunder defense even stronger, and it made their offense even stronger because of the spacing and 3-point shooting. But I thought that the Isaiah Hartenstein signing was like a need. I thought, and anybody that watched this team, when Chet was on the floor, the Thunder beat the Mavs. It was when Chet sat that the Mavs won that series. So for all the talk about the lack of size and things like that, I think it was just the lack of when Chet sat is when, they were really taken advantage of. I think that, the starting lineup worked, and that was with Josh Giddey. I think flipping him out for Caruso is a big upgrade. But I think that Hartenstein, he's such a diverse piece that can play in any lineup. His rim protection, like adding that size, physicality, like Joel said, the screen setting, that floater that he has, like he's another two-way player. He's going to help the Thunder with rebounding. He's going to help the Thunder with rim protection. I mean, the Thunder have 2 top 10 rim protectors on the team now. So for 48 minutes, you can have a top 10 rim protector out there, and sometimes they're going to be playing together. But you also have a dude in Isaiah Hartenstein who may not, be the true 5-out big that the Thunder have always had out there. But I do think that he's going to shoot some threes. They've talked about it. They didn't really do it in the preseason at all, so I'm curious about it.
Shot one.
Yeah, shot one. Exactly. But that floater is a weapon, one of the most efficient floaters in the game. His playmaking in the high post and finding cutters, screen setting for space. So he's going to provide so many things to the offensive end, offensive putbacks. He's just a great all-around player, offense, defense, special teams. So I just think that adding him just overall, it was a need, but so you bring up the floor, you bring up the ceiling, and he's going to be a positive in every lineup. He was one of the most winning, impactful players for that Knicks team, like in the playoffs. Like outside of Brunson, it was like Hartenstein was the next guy, him and OG. Like Hartenstein on this Thunder team just makes so much sense, even if he's not shooting threes.
Would you guys say the Knicks miss Hartenstein at this point?
Maybe a little
He
bit.
missed him tonight.
Yeah, they definitely. I saw a Knicks fan tweet out, like, I think it was at the end of the first quarter, end of the first half. Like, we only have a couple offensive rebounds. It's unacceptable. I was like, I wonder who got a lot of those last season.
What is missing?
But yeah, Hart's going to make such a difference, even beyond just the floor stretching. He was the guy, like, when we went to the offseason, I was like, we need Hartenstein. He was like the guy that I really wanted. And it's cool to see him, be able to play out there in the preseason, what he was doing. Obviously, it sucks that he's not going to be playing for the first couple months, it seems like. But once he comes back, I don't think it's going to take too long to reintegrate him. The dribble handoffs, the screening, which is going to open up the game so much for Shea and Dub. I think it's going to have a big, like, Steven Adams effect for what he did for John Morant and that Grizzlies offense at times in the half court when he was just sending the biggest screens ever and people were dying on those. And then just pull-up jumper after pull-up jumper or getting downhill for a Shea or a Dub. It just makes life so much easier. And like we saw in the Mavs series, when the offense really stalled out and Dub didn't have his most efficient series, I think having a big like Hartenstein who can make it so much easier for him to get open off those screens, it's going to be really big. Also, Bronny James got minutes, in case anyone was looking for an update there. Went for 0 for 2, missed a 3, and caught a rebound, tried to put it back up, and got glassed by Gobert. So that's the way his first minutes went. But he's out now, so.
Welcome to the league, man.
Welcome to
the first possession, he's guarding Julius Randle, and he just got backed all the way down to the rim and just put it right up and over. So, yeah, welcome to the league, man.
Yeah, I think with the Hartenstein minutes, these first few weeks are definitely going to be missed a lot. I think kind of pivoting off of that, I think one of the things that, a lot of Thunder fans are wondering about is what's going to happen with, with the injuries we've already got. Jay Will and Kinrich are still day-to-day, I think is the official term. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Dagnall is kind of being a little, as usual, not giving everything, which is expected. But I'm kind of wondering what you guys think about, how are those minutes without Hartenstein, which, as Brandon, you mentioned, you have 48 minutes of solid rim protection with a healthy Hartenstein, but now you don't. And so now with Chet off the floor, who is it going to be? We saw, like Jang out there at the 5 a couple times, did not look, the best at times. So definitely some area to like tinker around with. We had, Alex Reese was just signed. We haven't seen him yet, but another area there. I'm just kind of wondering, of all the different options of the backup 5, what are you guys kind of looking for until Jay Will and Kinrich get back? Brandon, we can start with you.
I think that Mark Daigneault will just kind of throw guys out there and experiment and see who kind of like seizes the spot, if anybody does, and it may be matchup dependent. What we know about Mark Daigneault, he loves data. He loves lineup data. He loves throwing different rotations and different guys out there, and he's not afraid to experiment. So if Jay Will and Kinrich are not back, I do think that we'll see some Jangs playing small ball 5. I think we'll see Dylan Jones even though he's a first round rookie that's 6'5", and he's like a ball handler. He may play some small ball 5. Like, let's get crazy. Like, I don't know. There's not a lot of options with Hartenstein, J. Will, and Kenrich hurt, so you got to use what you can. And Alex Reese, it's funny because, he didn't really play much at all in the preseason. Like, he was with the Thunder in training camp preseason, but we didn't get to see him much. If you go by his G League stats, he's a really, really good shooter. Shot 41% on pretty high volume in the G League. He can block some shots, average about 4.6 rebounds from memory, if I go right. I think he played like 18 minutes a game, 4.6 rebounds, 41% from 3, and like a blocked shot. So there's some potential there. He's 6'9", but I don't know how much, he'll be in the rotation. So I would not be surprised to see Zhang, Dylan Jones, Alex Reese, J-Dub. Like, I don't know. J-Dub played a little bit of small ball 5 in the past. Mark Daigneault will kind of try everything he can, though, and see what works.
Yeah, we know one thing about Mark, he's going to experiment. That's, as much as Thunder fans hated it last season, like, I'm sure there's going to be more of it. It's just one of Mark's things. And I mean, you kind of have to when you're going toward, trying to compete for a championship. You've got a team as talented as this. You got to explore every lineup. And I mean, it could be a blessing in disguise, like right now, to discover something that we may not have discovered otherwise if Hartenstein was playing. Not that anybody might crack the playoff rotation that much out of the group of guys that are going to replace, especially if it's not J. Will or Kenrich. Neither one of them are playing. But, I mean, you never know. Might as well go ahead and discover something now in case something else pops up later.
No, for sure. Like, guys like Uz were already going to be kind of in the rotation early on in the year, I think, getting minutes just because, like y'all talked about, Mark is going to experiment. He's going to put all his cards on the table. But I mean, obviously, I think he would have wanted to play Uz more 4 than 5 around this time. Kind of no choice now. But what I really lean into is, like Brandon said, Brandon mentioned Dylan Jones. I don't know how sustainable that is, but we've seen in practice, like, Dylan Jones working on DHOs with Isaiah Joe. Like, when Isaiah Joe and Shea are in the half court at the end of practice working, shooting, like, Dylan Jones, as of late, has been the guy practicing the handoffs, practicing the screening angles. He obviously has a frame that probably could be impactful at this level as a screener. So I think that's developing. It's just about the IQ and the reads and the handoffs and the playmaking. Like, obviously, he was a different type of facilitator than Hartenstein was at the last level and every level he's played. So I think that's something they'll lean into early on. And like Brandon mentioned, Dub was at, even if it was like for like a minute and a half, Dub played 5 in this preseason. Aaron Wiggins was guarding some 5s in this preseason. I don't know how sustainable any of this is, but I think nothing is off the table. So.
Yeah, and I think specifically like game 1, like Chet's gonna basically like match Jokic's minutes. Like, I don't think we're gonna throw Usman Jang out there to guard Nikola Jokic because, hey, I'm Jang gang till I die, but we do not like Uz at the 5 minutes in the Jang gang. So, kind of moving on to Lou Dort, and I'm gonna go to Joel here because you mentioned Dort earlier, and kind of like I guess the defense is like best option in this offense. So like last year, Dort like dropped his shooting volume like tremendously, but his efficiency went way up. And like he was like a real weapon for us from the 3-point line. Do you expect his shot diet to drop even more this year, or do you think it stays about the same? And also with all the additions, the continued development of Case and Wallace, do you think he's in any danger of losing his starting spot by the end of the year?
In danger of losing his starting spot. I think they're so fluid. I'm not even sure that they view it like that. Because, like Caruso lineups will happen. And we say Caruso lineups because Caruso being in the lineup probably means that Hartenstein's not in the lineup. They're going to have Hartenstein lineups. You're probably going to have lineups with both starting. You're probably going to have lineups with both coming off the bench. I think it's going to be beyond fluid this year. Maybe it won't really pick up trend-wise until like March. I would say the default lineup features Caruso if I had to guess. But starting spot, that's so fluid. I don't know if I can answer that. But if that's a question of how impactful Casey is, then there's no doubt about that in terms of the impact he could have if he is slotted in as a starter. And they had lineups that I thought were successful with him, Dort, and Caruso on the floor at the same time, which I think in the summer, if you asked, people were probably assuming that was pretty redundant, but they actually accentuate each other like in a very strange way. Like they're just all very connective players. And I don't remember the first part of your question.
Basically the shot volume, shot diet. Do you think it kind of
Right.
stays the same, or do you think it drops more with all the new additions?
Yeah, and it's crazy that we're talking about Dort's volume dropping because he still shot 5 a game, 5 3-pointers a game last year. He just had a wacky shot selection before that during the dark days. And so, I think it'll be more refined. I think we saw this some of the preseason. I don't know his exact efficiency numbers, but I thought eye test from the shots that he was taking, they were within the offense. I thought, I'm not saying he's not capable of, if you guys remember down the stretch in the Dallas series when things were, coming to a close, he was shooting some ill-advised threes. I'm not saying he's not capable of that anymore. I do think they're not going to put him in so many of those positions anymore because, like we mentioned earlier, Dub is going to be taking earlier shots into the shot clock. Chat's going to be taking attacking closeouts and taking people off the dribble. Shea is Shea. And so, and Caruso now, Caruso, that's a genuine spot-up option. And so I think he's only going to have to refine his shot selection. I don't even know that it's going to be his choice. I think he's made the conscious choice to clean up his shot selection, but I think this offense is kind of going to take it out of his hands, and it looked that way in the preseason.
Okay. Absolutely fair. I just, it's always hard. Like, going back to like the big 3 days with like the Boston Celtics, guys got to sacrifice in order to make things work for, other people. And Dort kind of feels like a candidate for that. But hey, like if he's hitting 40% of his threes like he was last year, like I don't care how many he's taking. Just make sure they're within the flow of the offense. And if he's dunking on people's heads as well, like hey, you can drive a couple times to the rim as well.
Hey, Dort had that crossover a couple of times in the preseason.
That was a pretty sick move.
It was quick. Like that was the quickest crossover I'd ever seen from Blue. He hit that and threw it down. I was like, where did that come from? Like it was clean. So I mean, I'll take more of that. I'll take more Dort crossovers. I got highlights I can post. I can get my tweets off.
I'm pretty sure that happened right after the Air Queso moment from the preseason where he just launched himself. Those back-to-back was a fun.
Turned into the Monstars for a couple of possessions. Which,
a fun preseason for sure.
You'll love to see. Kind of going back to a little bit, we talked a little bit about Alex Caruso. Obviously, it was a shock. I mean, I was about to go play pickup hoops, and I got the tweet, and I had to I was like, guys, I'm going to be a little late. I need to make a video, and did a BR live stream. And all this, no one saw it coming. After the moment of shock, we didn't have to attach any assets to make that swap. Like, what were your first thoughts when that move happened? And also, what role do you see Caruso playing with the Thunder specifically? Obviously, he's going to be doing some starting in place of Giddey. It seems like there might be some games where it comes off the bench. It seems like it's going to be a fluid starting lineup. So just kind of what are you expecting from Caruso this season now with more of that prominent role with the team? And we'll go with Joel first.
My reaction, well, I didn't think it was possible. I was actually sitting down with, I don't know if you guys know Sam Smith, old Bulls writer, wrote the book on Jordan in the early 90s. The Last Dance. I was sitting down with him an hour before. I had threw out Caruso as the theoretical piece, like the Thunder's Derek White in essence.
Yeah.
But I was like, I mean, it was BS because there's no real path to that without giving up assets that probably are not meant for this summer. And then they don't give up any first rounders, anything. It just blew my mind how incompetent the Bulls are and the bar how the bar got lower. I mean, they playing limbo now at this point. And so I thought it was impossible, but it obviously changed my view on the trajectory, which I already thought was high. And then it made the Hardenstein thing for where I stood at that time, it made it way easier. Caruso is one of the most pluggable players in the league. He still pisses off 6'10" forwards to this day. He plays above his height, which is something this Thunder team obviously loves. And one thing I'd watch for, I'm not sure how many people have brought this up. It's really by chance, but he's had an odd. If you go on his b-ball reference page, every odd year he'll shoot like 40%, then he'll go back down to like 34. I don't know what he'd attribute that to. This would be that year where he shot 41% last year. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. It's something to watch for.
We need to buck
But I
that
think-
trend, man.
Dude,
Yeah,
Be
I
on the
mean, I think
lookout.
he's a threat regardless, though.
Yeah.
And you've seen it already in the early on how vocal he is. He's been so many places. He was a survivor with the Bulls, so it's not like he's unafraid to be vocal on that end. And then he's almost like this. He's this mini anchor. Not almost. He's this mini anchor that I think it's why they'll stay afloat even after introducing the stuff with Hardenstein and having to miss out on that part early on, because you still have a second anchor out there with him defensively. And it's some of the stuff he does defensively is just scary. The strips, the lane stuff. It's unreal that they were able to, take a guy like Giddey. I don't have to explain what Giddey was for this team by the end of last year, and completely 180 with Caruso.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't watch like a lot of basketball podcasts outside of the Thunder, but I have like a few like Chicago people I listen to, and it's so interesting how on their perspective they're like, oh, this was a great trade for us, and it actually might be, because like Brandon said, Josh Giddey could thrive in that environment because he gets the ball and he could develop there. And so it's very interesting how like both sides are like, this was an awesome trade for us. You don't see that very often. And yeah, the fact that none of the assets we had to give up for him to get Giddey out of the door, to get a new sort of refreshed start, and then get Caruso in the door here has been awesome. I think one of the questions I've had or thought about is where, because Joel, you said, I think is a great kind of descriptor of him, is he's a kind of a mini anchor. I'm kind of wondering where he is going to be a mini anchor, particularly like in which lineups. I think there's going to be situations, matchup dependent or whatever the case may be, where we might see him in a starting lineup rotation. I also could, I think he's going to see him probably more frequently off the bench, in particular with guys like not Caruso, with Cason Wallace. I think that area for development for Cason is very interesting because of how both of them are defensively. They can kind of build off of each other. And so, Brandon, I'll turn it over to you. So, what's sort of the, ways that you see Caruso sort of anchoring the certain lineups that he's going to be in, and what types of lineups do you kind of expect him to be in?
I do agree with Joel, who said that he thought that the Thunder starting lineup would default with Caruso in the starting lineup. I do think that he will be kind of a de facto starter. I do think he'll be fluid. I think there'll be some matchup stuff, and sometimes Hartenstein starts. But I think for the majority of games, we'll see Caruso as a starter. And just the fact that you can throw Caruso and Lou Dort, who graded out as like the two best ISO perimeter defenders in the league, on the same team. Like when you're in a conference where teams have Luka and Kyrie on the same team, and you can throw two elite defenders at those guys, and it's such a huge difference maker when you're in a conference that has Anthony Edwards, and you can throw one of those guys, and then their secondary scorer is going to be guarded by either Dort or Caruso. Caruso's also, the Thunder talked about this after the trade, that he can guard up and down the lineup. He can guard 1 through 4. We saw Caruso guard KD last year, and he did it well. And KD's like 7-footer. So, I mean, Caruso guards bigger than he is, but he can guard a point guard as well. So I think also he's a really good help defender. Like Lou is dominant in like a one-on-one situation. Caruso can do that as well, but he's also such a great help and team defender as well. So I think that any rotation, any lineup he's in, he's going to help anchor the defense. Like Chet's going to anchor, the rim, the defense there. And then Hartenstein, when he's in, will anchor it, with that lineup. But Caruso, no matter what lineup he's in, it's going to be a positive. Every lineup with this Thunder team is going to be a positive defensive lineup. Clearly. But Caruso really is like a special defense. Like the Thunder have 3 guys in Chet, Dort, and Caruso who are like all-world defense, and then some really, really good defenders as well in Hartenstein, Shea, J-Dub, Casey Wallace. But you can make the argument, and most would at this point, that Caruso is the best overall defender of those 3. Now, Chet, I would say maybe by the end of the season, maybe overtakes that. But right now, I think most would say that Caruso, of all these great defenders, is probably the best overall defender right now. I don't know. You could argue.
That's interesting, Brandon.
I think that would be.
I tend to lean toward bigs in the league. I think like 7-foot anchors are just the most valuable defensive piece you can have. So I think if this team is going to be a championship team, it probably means Chet's the second best player, and it doesn't mean he's the second scoring option. It probably means he's just the best defender on a team of great defenders. So I don't know, man. I don't know, Brandon. I mean, Caruso might be better right now, his role, because obviously it is Chet's second year. But I think I value what Chet brings more, and especially by the end of the year, I'd maybe lean Chet. Maybe that's a hot take for some people. I don't know.
No, I agree with you. And that's what I'm saying. Like, just because of like the accolades that Caruso has gotten, like first team All NBA defense, second team All NBA defense. So I think like from like a voter's perspective, like he's accomplished that. But I agree with you. I value, like the bigs, and I do think that Chet had an incredible defensive season last year as a rookie. It got overlooked, I think, because of Wemby, unfortunately. But he had a special rookie season as a defender, and I do think that he's going to go to an even another level this season, especially surrounded by all the talent that he's surrounded by. But yeah, I agree with you. But I do think that might be a hot take, though, just because of what Caruso's accomplished.
It's crazy. I really do think Chet is going to have maybe the most forgotten all-time rookie season ever. The fact, in my opinion, he should have absolutely been on that all-defensive second team. He was deserving of that, anchoring the defense. And it really is insane that we get to even have this conversation. It's like, oh, who's the, which of these 2 defenders on the same roster are better? The guard who can guard Kevin Durant and make it look like nothing, or Chet Holmgren, who just averaged over 2 blocks per game and anchored a top 5 defense as a rookie. It's ridiculous that we can even have that conversation, that they're on the same team. And I'm of the belief that the Thunder will be the best defense in the NBA, and they'll be at pretty comfortably. It won't be a massive gap, but they will be in that spot for pretty much the entire season, because there really aren't any weak links. The weakest defenders that are going to play rotational minutes for a majority of the year are at worst solid defenders. They can hold their own. It really does remind me, and Joel said this, of when Caruso came in. It's like the Celtics getting their Derek White. It's adding that extra piece from the outside, who is that high-level defender. He's that shooter, that guy that is underrated, that really clicks and puts everything together. I also saw someone say at one point that Caruso is going to be like the Thunder's Iguodala. I don't know if he's going to quite win Finals MVP, but I think he's that piece that really makes it all work. And just he complements everything that the Thunder want to do. It's crazy that they went from Giddey, who really just did not work in the system, to a player who basically was molded for the system that the Thunder have now, which makes it even funnier that he was with the Blue back all those years ago.
His return. Yeah.
Thunder legend, 2 times.
2-time Thunder legend, Alex Caruso. I want to kind of pivot a little bit. We mentioned Dylan Jones briefly when we were talking about kind of backup 5s. But I do want to kind of just take a moment to discuss kind of the new rookies that have come in. We saw them shine quite a bit early in preseason, especially, but pretty much throughout. Dylan Jones and AJ Mitchell were putting up some really nice stuff in the preseason. I obviously want to talk about that as a little bit, but I also want to get, since Brandon and Joel, we have both of you on and as media members, I think I also was hoping we could get a little insight in what you guys have seen from those rookies off the court too. I think, especially with Dylan Jones, I think he's been very interesting to see in terms of the quotes that have come out and how mature he is. Excuse me. And especially for his, being just a rookie, how well he's thinking about this whole process is very interesting. So I'll start with you, Joel. Like with both of the rookies, you can pick either one. What's been something that's really stuck out to you on the court, and then something off the court with those rookies?
I'll talk about Dylan. He's like, I mean, no shade to Barkley's guard skills, and that was a different game, but he's obviously like a guard in Charles Barkley's body. Like really unique player. I'm not saying he's gonna be Charles Barkley, but I think he could be a pretty good role player at this level. He was one of the last guys in the gym shooting today. I think and this applies both on and off the court, I think he's a very curious individual. I mean, plenty of people have mentioned it already. Just the questions he's asking. Alex Caruso said today that he was asking him about defensive coverages and financial advice, like everything under the sun. I just think he has so many questions, and also off the court, I think he's the best talker on his team. Like he's really insightful. Like that dude, you saw the summer league quotes. Like I think he's days away from being 23, and I pray the day never comes that he's like jaded by all of this in the NBA, kind of like it feels like Chet already is. But I think that's kind of just who he is. But he's a great talker. He's super insightful, loves to talk basketball. I think he loves to watch basketball. Mark was saying a couple weeks back that he'll talk about the angle of a screen in a preseason game for hours. Like he's a sicko. It feels like kind of like Shea was and is. Just watched a lot of basketball, and he's very expressive too. I don't know that he'd agree with this, but in the summer league, when there were certain reads I thought he made that his teammates maybe weren't on the same page with him on, I thought there was some frustration that you could see at times. I don't know if it was with himself or with others in rare moments, but I think the processing for him is going to be the thing that's like his swing thing, how fast that comes. Because his frame, he could change that in the summer, I think, and he could choose any direction he wants to, whether he wants to stay this weight or not. And then defense too is a thing that'll matter for him. They're trying to get him to be an impactful defender, but the weight factors in, the IQ factors in. Obviously, it doesn't make him look any better that he's playing alongside Caruso and Dort and all these dudes. But the ball handling and confidence and shot making is all there. Like he's gutsy, bro. Like he shot some things in the preseason. It's like, whoa. And he's like he's just a hooper, bro. I know that's a real like Kendrick Perkins definition now. That's like that's a weird conversation, but he's a hooper, bro. That's all I can say.
For sure, man. I mean, the like lasting image that like stays in my mind from Dylan Jones was in the summer league. Whenever I don't remember who it was somebody on the Jazz, but he made a shot in his face and he started clapping in his face. Dylan Jones, like without hesitation, like a step inside the logo, pulls up in his face and starts clapping in his face right back at him. Like that's kind of dude he is. Like not only is he a hooper, he's a dog. Like, and I mean shoot, the Thunder are full of dogs. So like, he fits right into that mold. But Brandon, kind of going to you, man, AJ Mitchell, man, what sticks out to you on off the court for your time with AJ Mitchell?
Yeah. So the Thunder have a type, obviously, especially lately with these older rookies like J-Dub and Aaron Wiggins and J. Will and now Dylan Jones and AJ Mitchell, especially the second rounders, like the older guys who are ready to step in and play. Like first rounders, across the NBA, you usually go like high upside and things like that. But the Thunder have taken in the second round these like super sharp, mature, older rookies that can step in and play right now. And especially with this team right now, it's a contending team. And we already see it like with injuries, and with, a long season, the Thunder like to play their young guys. And AJ Mitchell, his play has been, I thought he's been the most consistent rookie, like through the summer league and preseason. Like Dylan Jones has absolutely popped. And like his highs have been incredibly high. But just as far as like consistent, efficient scoring, and I think AJ Mitchell, like his cuts to the rim, always know where to be. Like Dylan Jones is more all on ball creator, playmaker for everybody. Is kind of more of a hub, whereas AJ Mitchell is more of like kind of off ball, but still he can still pass. He can shoot. And I really like his mid range and his cutting to the bucket. So no, I think that AJ Mitchell, even though he's a second round guy, he's a guy that a lot of I know draft analysts had a late first round grade on. I think he only slipped through the cracks because older rookie, small school. We've seen it in the past, but if you look at his college production, he can really play. So super sharp, and I think he's ready to play. And I think that he will get in the rotation. I think he'll be in the G League. I think he'll get G League minutes, but we've seen the Thunder will be willing, even as a contending team, play some of those rookies. So I think there'll be nights. It'll be sporadic. It's not like he'll be in the nightly rotation like that or anything like that. But I think you'll see some minutes with the Thunder this season.
So that kind of bleeds into my next question. I mean, we're talking about Dylan Jones. We're talking about AJ Mitchell. Obviously, there's like the top 9 rotation. Then you got Jalen Williams, Kenrich Williams, Ousmane Dieng. Like the Thunder goes pretty deep. Is this the deepest team in the NBA when the Thunder are healthy, Brandon?
Yes. I think the Celtics are really deep. The Wolves are pretty deep. But the thing I think that like the 9-man rotation we all know, and like the Thunder are deep with top end talent because you got Shea, Dub, and Chet. Then they have Caruso, Dort, Hartenstein. Like that next 3, that's a great 4, 5, 6. And then 7, 8, 9 to have Joe, Wallace, and Wiggins. Like, so that like every section, every tier is deep. But then when you got like Kenrich Williams, like a healthy Kenrich Williams as like your 10th or 11th guy, Jay Will as your 10th or 11th guy, Ousmane Dieng, yeah, he's young. Yeah, he's been inconsistent and up and down, but he's still a lottery pick as like your 12th or 13th, 14th guy. And then Dylan Jones, another first rounder. Then you got Nikola Topic just kind of like marinating on the bench for a year.
Out there, bud.
He was a dude that was projected to go top 4 before his injury. So I think when you include all those things, I do think that this is the deepest team. There's a few teams that are deep, but like 1 through 15 or 1 through 18, however you look at it, I think the Thunder is the deepest team.
I'm with it.
It's really close between them and Boston.
Yeah.
It's really close. Because Boston, you look down their bench, Xavier Tillman's become like an actual decent role player. Sam Hauser is one of the better in-house sharpshooters. Like, I don't know, man. It's close. And then the brand of basketball they play, I think, like makes it so that all those guys are probably like especially helpful. Like they all got their niche role. I think they've maximized those guys probably as well as the Thunder has. It's closer for me than I think maybe everybody else. But those are the 2 to me that come to mind.
It's tough with what we just saw on the Celtics, what they just put up. Like it's hard to argue against the Celtics as the
I will
team.
say those end of bench role players brick 13 straight threes.
He did brick 13.
I'll put that.
They have one
there,
job, man.
Yeah, they have
Thunder have
literally
currently-
one job. The one job is to make 1 3.
I'll say this: the Thunder bench has currently not bricked 13 threes in a row in this
It hasn't
regular
happened.
season. So you spot the lie. There's not any there. So
Listen, Adam Flagler is making that 3. I'll tell you
he's
that.
making it.
Oh yeah, he's making that. Dylan Jones is making that. AJ, any of them got that.
You just started a curse. This might be the cone curse.
Oh no, not again.
Oh no!
No.
Right.
You can't will that into existence.
Not at all, man. Not at all. That would never happen with me. Although I will say I called Mikhail Kid Gilchrist, and he immediately like made every shot in a row after that. I think he missed like
Reverse
one shot
cone.
after I tweeted that out.
Reverse
So
Chris Cone.
we'll see. I mean, if the curse does exist, we're literally never winning a final, so we might as well accept that now. So we're just going to pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
I guess going off of the deepest in the NBA thing, also talking about maybe top attributes of the Thunder is the defense. Like I mentioned, I think they're going to be the best team defensively in the league this season. Is it far-fetched to say that they could be a historic defensive team?
No, I think I've seen some of that talk, and I mean, they really do have defenders. Everybody in the rotation, like we know the top 9 rotation guys. Every one of those guys plays defense. Even Isaiah Joe, like the 3-point specialist, he's undersized, but he fights on defense. He takes charges. He's one of the lead leaguers in charges taken last year as a 3-point specialist. So just the fact that everybody's bought in on defense and everybody fights on defense, and then you have the talent on top of that. I don't, like, historic is hard to say. Like, even in just this season, like Boston is going to have a really good defense. Minnesota is going to have a really good defense, and Orlando is going to have a really good defense. So I think those 4 teams stand out to me as the 4 best defensive teams in the NBA. But I will say, I do think, given provided health, I think that the Thunder will be the best defensive team this season. But to me, like, just setting aside the historic side of it, to argue that they could be better than the Wolves, Celtics, or Magic this year, I think is a pretty huge compliment, because I think pretty highly of those 3 teams' defenses.
I mean, if we're talking, this is the thing with the evolution of basketball, is that, like, the teams that are the best at what they're good at now, it probably means they're the best ever at what they're good at now, just because of evolution and stuff like that. Not to crap on old teams, old eras. I know we got nostalgia and all that. But if you're the best defensive team today, it probably means you're the best defensive team ever. I mean, I know all the net ratings and stuff show that. Like, it's always like, you know, when it comes to offensive rating, it's always the highest all the time, whatever. And so obviously the conversation between them and Minnesota, I thought Minnesota was super scary last year. It's also like a systemic thing, you know, where are they, you know, ending possessions at? Is it mostly at the rim because of Chet and Hardenstein and that stuff is getting funneled there? Is the Thunder breaking it up top because they got Caruso in the lane, Kaysen in the lane, Dort in the lane? Like, where is it happening? I think there's some aesthetic bias there in terms of what people want to see and how they judge that. But because they're so well-rounded, I don't know who you hide on defense now. I mean, the answer was obvious last year. I guess Isaiah Joe is like the one you have to hide in the top 8, 9. I think Aaron Wiggins obviously isn't Dort or those guys. He's closer to the middle than them, but even then, he's pretty solid. So it's like, who do you hide? The talent's there. It just has to come to fruition. Obviously, I think they have a chance.
Agreed. I think they have a chance too.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty tough to argue with the amount of versatility we have defensively, assuming everybody's healthy. Like, this team can do a lot with all the different matchups you've got too, and that is a big factor into, you know, being the best defensive team. I think we got one last question, Thunder related, and then we've got a quick little game Dylan has for us if you guys got time. But I wanted to end with kind of something that Presti mentioned in his season opener. I forget what it's called, season opener. And then sort of the main gist of it was, at least for me, was he was kind of emphasizing a lot of keeping expectations at bay, especially with all of the excitement that's coming around this team with the new acquisitions. And so I think something that might be good to, you know, at least look at is, yes, we have really good defensive versatility. We have, you know, our guys like Shea and Deb are increasing their productivity, and that's all great things. But I think, you know, with any team as good as they are, there's always going to be areas of growth. And I think one thing that we might want to kind of like think about as well is what are those areas to consider, especially when we start to jump into the first few weeks of the NBA season. So I'll start with you, Brandon. If you had to pinpoint one area or a player or just a general thing that you see as a potential area of weakness for this team, what would it be? And then, you know, just not to make it a little bit more optimistic, what do you see as like the eventual development of that to improve that area of weakness?
Yeah, like we talked about, I think the first 15, 20 games, it'll be, you know, size when Chet sits, just because Hartenstein's hurt. But once Hartenstein's back, that takes care of that. So that would be like the easy answer, just the beginning of the season. But overall, big picture, I think it's the 3-point volume. The Thunder's talked about this. We've talked about this on this podcast tonight. I think that the Thunder were the number one 3-point shooting team in the league last year, but they were right in the middle as far as volume goes. Mark Daynault's talked about it. Shay's talked about it. J-Dub's talked about it. We've talked about it. We've all talked about it, that the Thunder need to up their 3-point volume, especially from their best 3-point shooters. So I think that will take the offense to another level. I think it'll take the efficiency to another level. I think we'll make them that much harder to guard. So yeah, I think that provided, Hartenstein comes back and provides the size, the next thing would be 3-point volume. And I think that they're going to do it. They've talked about it. And we've seen this Thunder team, when they talk about something, they take something seriously. It's just kind of like in their minds to do it. They're going to do it. Like, I mean, who knows if they're going to finish as the number one 3-point shooting team as far as percentage goes next season. But I would bet for sure that volume is going to go up. They're not going to be the 16th team in volume anymore. And then that'll be a good thing for the Thunder.
So you kind of saw that in the preseason too. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Joel.
So strength and weakness, right?
Yeah. Just like an area of weakness that you might envision and something that we can do to improve on it.
Well, if I'm listening to strength, I think one thing, and they're going to try to mimic this before Hartenstein comes back, but really the real sample comes when Hartenstein comes back. Just what he offers them in terms of versatility, specifically how he changes Shay's game and how he changes Dub's game. A lot of this volume stuff we're talking about, a couple of those threes from Dub probably come off screens and handoffs from Hartenstein. That's a real possibility. Shay, we might see him. I mean, he's obviously the most frequent driver already in the league, but we might see that, grow to an unbearable level with Hartenstein being the screener there. We already saw in the preseason, he has options where he kicks to Hartenstein for the push shot when it's not there. It's just there's a certain level of impossibility to unlock there. And then weakness, if I had to go to a weakness, I think it's kind of similar. I mean, I know it's an 82-game slate to where they could improve, but it's a matter of whether Dub and Chet make the leaps they're supposed to. I think Dub was a little hesitant to admit this until like after their season ended. But like the playoffs, the way it changes underneath you, I think was a lot for him to handle. Just the game-to-game microscope, obviously having what worked for you in the regular season so often, slipping screens, how he got to his kill spots, that completely changing, obviously, altered his game and impact and limited him. And so whether those guys can, obviously Hartenstein's going to change some of that, but whether those guys can on their own make some of those leaps, whether this Chet leap is real that we're seeing in the preseason, I think that matters if you're looking at this team as a championship contender versus, making it to the conference finals. You think that's their ceiling. I think that's the swing, whether those guys make their leaps, because I think there is a faction in Twitter that thinks like, they wouldn't take Jalen Williams seriously as a second option on a real team. I think he's going to change that perception. But it also depends on like how eager you are for that to happen. It might not happen this year. I mean, I think Sam is going to temper expectations anyway. But I think Sam knows these processes where you build a dynasty. I mean, it took the Celtics 7 years of like agony to get to this point where they're like unbeatable. I keep using Boston as a template because they're like the template in basketball right now. I do think the Thunder is built differently. I think their first option is a way more viable first option than Tatum, just in terms of leading a team's offense to a championship. But those two guys, your second and third, got to make that leap if championship is what you want this year.
Yep, absolutely, man. All right, well, guys, we've got a long time just talking Thunder stuff. I'm going to rapid fire through this last section. Basically, we like to close out our podcast whenever we have guests with a little fun section here, and I've kind of blended it with predictions. So we're going snake style. So we'll start with Joel. We'll do Joel, Brandon, Joel, and we'll follow that back and forth. I've got two style of answers. It's over, under, and fill in the blank. So starting off, we'll go with Joel. This is over, under. Jalen Williams minutes played versus the Nuggets Thursday. The over-under is set at half of a minute.
Half a minute. Over.
You think he's
What
good?
Yeah, I think he'll play. I think
So if
he'll
he
play.
subs in for like 29 seconds, that's
Listen, Tierney's day to day. I was just making sure. I was trying to get creative way to get the
just
insight
wondering.
from the beat guy.
Okay.
All right. All right, Brandon. Isaiah Hartenstein will return before fill in the blank.
Before Ben Simmons. Oh no, I'm sorry, we can't say that anymore. Ben Simmons.
Oh.
Sorry.
He's back.
ricochet shots.
He's back. Before December 1st.
Okay.
It's fine by
I was
me.
hoping you'd say Thanksgiving, but
Yeah, that was
we'll
my
wait a
target
week.
too, but it's
We'll
close
wait a
enough
week.
to December 1st.
It's like a week apart.
It's
Give
fine.
him some time. Let him go on Thanksgiving with the family and chill. Give him
Have a
some
whole
time.
holiday.
Hey, let him eat up and rest the hand a little bit.
Before Kawhi.
Before Kawhi. I should have gone
Ooh.
Kawhi.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
I do
should've
think I don't know. That's a good bet.
That kind of leads right into my next question, Brandon. Over under 9.5 for the Thunder's first pick in the NBA draft this year.
I will say my official prediction is they get pick 9, so I will put under. But I think you set the over under at a perfect spot.
There we go. Hey.
The smart money is on 12 though.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
Maybe
guarantee is it's like when the Bulls
Statistically.
got picked 7 like 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Or the Pistons picked 5 for forever.
Yeah, or the Pistons have the worst records
The best
in franchise
odds to
history,
get
and they're
it.
like, oh yeah, pick 5 every year.
Sorry, you don't get the number 1 pick. Better luck next time.
All right, Joel, you kind of alluded to this, but I mean, let's get an official answer. Who's the starting lineup with or without, or we'll just skip with. If Dub doesn't play, let's say your prediction's wrong at the beginning. Who's the starting lineup without Dub? Fill in the blank.
Oh, without Dub. That's not what I thought you were gonna ask me. Shea, Kaysen. Why not? You know what? Shea, Kaysen, Lou, Wiggs, Chet.
Okay.
Wiggs. Getting some love for Wiggs.
I like it. All right, staying with you, Joel. How many of the Thunder makes the All-Star team? Over under set at 2.5.
Under. Sorry,
Yeah.
guys. I think the most they get is 2, and I think that's optimistic. But then again, you need the dub leap. I think it can happen, man. I'm not ruling it out. I think it's a little hard for Chet because of the climate of the Western Conference and their bigs. It's
pretty stacked.
It's just crazy. I think people are going to vote Wemby over him. Wemby mania is in midseason form. So, but I'll go under.
Okay, that's fair. I don't like it, but it's fair. All right, Brandon, who is the Thunder's? No, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. The Thunder's second best player is fill in the blank.
Oh, that you did me dirty there.
He's gonna say Alex Caruso.
Who are you gonna
Thank
hate on?
God you gave him that one.
Basically, what you're asking here.
You
Gonna hate
did
on
me
Dub or
dirty.
Chet?
I will say
Hop out and say Usman Jang, and it'll make Dylan happy.
Jalen Holmgren.
Smart answer.
No, you don't get to do that.
All right,
Nah,
all right. Chet
you don't get
Williams.
to do that.
Chet Williams.
I like that one. I like that better.
Cheddar Dub, right?
I mean, really, you can make a legit argument for J-Dub or Chet. Like, I think it depends on the night. Like, I think that any given night, it could be either one of those guys. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to back out of this. I really don't know. I think.
Okay, so make your argument tonight, Brandon.
I think that J-Dub is more likely to possibly someday see this podcast, so I'll go with Jalen Williams.
Very kind of you.
Until he sends it to Chet.
You see this?
Hey, Dub's a huge
24
fan of the
mark.
Twitter, so that's probably fair. But no, that reminds me of back in the day when Royce used to do Thunderbolts on Daily Thunder, and we had Reggie Jackson and Jeremy Lamb. He was like, if we could just combine Reggie Jackson and Jeremy Lamb to one player, he'd be the perfect role player. And he just referred to him every game after that as Reggie Lamb. So very nice, very nice. All right, going back to you, Joel. Or no, I'm sorry, we're staying with Brandon. Brandon, so who makes one of all NBA, all of the NBA defense, all rookie teams? We'll go over under 2.5.
Wait. What's the question? How many
So-
all NBA, all rookie?
All NBA, all rookie, all defense, over under 2.5.
Oh, combined. Okay.
Okay. I'll say over.
Okay.
I'll say over.
You feeling bold? You want to say who to think it?
Yeah, Shea will get all NBA. That's a cinch. And then I think possibly 2 all NBA defense. That's tough though. That's tough.
I take
Yeah.
over too. I take over too.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Caruso and Chet. I
Yeah.
think Dort's
Yeah.
still going to keep chasing it. I mean, people just like Caruso, and we don't have to get into it. Caruso's an anchor though, and he has too. He has the bias. Not like he needs it, but he has it already.
Yeah, I think Chet kind of got slept on a little bit for second team last year. Personally.
Very slept on.
For
Very
sure.
slept on.
Agreed. He deserved it.
All right, going back to you, Joel. Thunder get most improvement out of which player? Fill in the blank.
Oh, geez. Most improvement. Casing.
Love it.
Like that answer.
Yeah.
Kentucky guy.
I like what I saw in the preseason in terms of what they want him to be. He was obviously great in his role as a 20-year-old, and they're not rushing him to change that, but they're obviously giving him the runway to be something else. And I like what I saw in the preseason. Give me Casey.
Obviously, it's different when you see these guys in person. Does he look like more quick twitchy this year than he did last year?
I think you're starting to see some of the guard roots. Like you would have never saw. Like he did a real Ronaldo Segu Hezi in one of those games, and that was something you saw. Like, when he's at a pro-am or close to the high school. I think he's been more like system player and sound since then. But I think they're giving him some runway now to be creative. I think he's always had some of that. I think now he's just kind of getting unlocked. I would agree. I think he has some real handle to him.
I like it. All right, staying with you, Joel. What NBA award winners will the Thunder have? And we're going over under 1.5. So these are the major NBA awards.
Include player of the year.
1.5. I don't mind over because I think Shake, we talked about it, can get MVP. And then I think Dub has some real momentum behind him in terms of most improved. I think the people who think realistically are not just throwing Wemby out there. I think Dub has some real momentum now. I picked on a podcast earlier in the summer Jalen Johnson as my guy for most improved. But I think Dub has a real shot, and he has the real momentum behind him before the season even starts. That's a lot of people's pick that I'm seeing recently. So over.
I think Jalen Johnson should have got some love last year, or more love than most improved last year. So I'm with it.
No doubt.
All right, these last two will be for both of you guys. But we'll start with Brandon since it's his turn. Thunder's regular season record will be fill in the blank.
I have said that this is the 60-win team. I said that before Isaiah Hartenstein got hurt. So, whereas I might have gone 62 or something, I'm going to stick with my 60-win team, even with Hartenstein being hurt. Even in a stacked West, I think that they won 57 last year, made 2 huge improvements, and the internal development. I'll say 60-22.
Okay, what about you, Joel?
I don't have the math on the exact win and loss, but give me either 58 or 59 wins. I'd probably lean 59 wins.
Okay, I'm with that. Would be 59-23. Right?
Thank you for that.
Hey, if there's one thing I'm good at, it's math in my head. So, stay with you, Joel. Thunder games won in playoffs over under 11.5. 16 wins a ring.
Over.
Nice.
Okay.
Only because I gave him I did a predictions thing for the Oklahoma earlier. I gave them a finals nod. I think they can make the finals now. Once they get there, that's a different story. But I don't see there's clear paths for them to the finals, even with all this parity and everything. it almost just feel like too much would have to go wrong for them. Besides the obvious, like those guys having to make the leap, but I don't see why they couldn't.
Okay, so that would at least give us 12 wins. So I like it. All right, Brandon, pressure's on.
I got over as well. The Thunder I got Thunder and Celtics in the finals. I think that all you can go by, you can't predict like, any sort of in-season trades, moves, health, all those things. What we know right now, looking at this roster compared to the rest of the roster in the West, this is the best roster in the West. So I got them going to the finals. So over.
I'd like to throw one in over under 0.5 Larry O'Brien trophies that reside in Oklahoma City going into the 2025-2026 season.
I like how we're making this just like, do you think this is or not? But it's just an over under.
I didn't say that. I just said, I mean, maybe there's just a
one up here.
shipping error to the wrong place, and the Thunder just happen to get the Larry O'Brien. I don't know. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Wow. No answers. That's crazy.
Brandon, are you going to answer?
I think that the Thunder and Celtics are pretty evenly matched. I think that the Celtics have an easier time in the East as far as racking up wins because the bottom of the East, you'll get some easy wins that you won't get in the West. They're also the reigning champs. They have the experience. They have, this is what I'll say though. I think these rosters, I think that they're really evenly matched. And I think if the Thunder are to get to the finals, like the whole, like they need experience, they're a young team, you can throw it out the window because that means that they beat like the Lakers and the Wolves and the Mavs or something like that to even get there. So like they've been battle tested at that point. So I think it's a coin toss at that point. If the Thunder and Celtics were to meet up, I think that those are the two best teams on paper. And I think that's a coin toss series.
Okay, but over under 0.5 Larry O'Brien trophies was my question.
It
wasn't over under
answer. That wasn't an answer.
It wasn't over under 0.5 really good final series.
You can tell you cover Sam Presti because that was the longest non-answer.
Man.
On one side, this is a Thunder podcast. Let's say over. I'm on a Thunder podcast.
Like, there you go. See, you get it.
That's
all I needed.
You're at gunpoint. Like, say it.
Right,
I know Joel's going the opposite.
That was the other thing. I know that Joel's going to go Celtics. So
I'll play devil advocate and answer right away instead of a 3-minute monologue. I'll say under. The Celtics just look godlike right now. And they've really mastered this formula, this high volume 3 thing. They seem impossible to deal with. I don't think that's a knock to the Thunder at all. Obviously, the Celtics took years of conference finals and agony and rough postseasons to get to this point, and they obviously had cheat code acquisitions in Derek White and Porzingis. So they're built for this. I think the Thunder is going to have their window. I don't know if that starts this year. It depends on those leaps, like I mentioned. I could see them, winning a ring in the next 3 years, though. That's for sure. But this year, it's hard for me to pick against Boston.
Yeah.
Now, what you said about battle tested, though, Brandon, I think it is possible for them to have been battle tested through the Western Conference with some of those teams and still not have the experience to deal with a team like Boston and be put in the situations that Boston will put them in. That's the only reason I would lean Boston.
Yeah, that's fair. That's completely fair.
The key is to let them hit 29 threes to start the game, lull them into a false sense of security. They go for the record, and you storm back with the starting lineup is the way to
all
go
7 games.
Xavier Tillman.
Yep. I mean, no one's tried it yet, so
it's a bold strategy.
Yeah, we can
It's
say.
absolutely fair. All right, fellas, you guys have been most gracious with your time. We'll conclude it. We won't do any of the weird start bench cut things that I've crafted. But I thank you guys for coming on. It was an absolute great time. I think the listeners and ourselves, we learned a lot. We got a lot of perspective and insight about the Thunder season. I mean, it goes without saying, like the hype is absolutely through the roof for this team. It's going to be an awesome season. It's going to be an awesome ride. And, when it comes to coverage for the team. Like I would look no further than the two that are on here on our podcast for covering the team. So thank you guys for your awesome coverage that you've already provided us, and look forward to it this year. So I want to go ahead and give you all the floor to plug anything you want to plug, where folks can find you, what you're working on. And floor is yours, and we'll start with Joel.
Well, I appreciate the love. First of all, I appreciate y'all for having me. I don't have much to plug. Go follow me on Twitter at JXLorenzi. That's always been at. Working on a big profile. That's all I can say right now. Working on a really big profile. Okay. That should run in the next 2 weeks. Really, really looking forward to this story, because I don't think people have really captured the essence of this dude really well. That's what I'm working on. Follow me on Twitter. It'll be on there. Haven't done a Thunder Buddies in a while, so I'm a pod freelancer right now. So whoever wants me on their pod to talk Thunder or whatever, I'm available. Hit my agent being my DM. So.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you having me on. As always, appreciate the kind words. You can find me on Twitter at Rahbar, at dailythunder.com, Franchise Radio, KREF Radio, OKC Dream Team. But I also want to give a shout out to Joel, because my man is killing it. Joel and Steve McGeehee from Channel 9 are the only two Thunderbeat guys that are at every single away game as well as home game. So Joel, a lot of miles covering the team, and he's killing it. So props to Joel.
Much love, my guy. I appreciate that. And what are you not on? You named like five pods and radio stations. Jesus, dude. But I appreciate the love. Seriously.
For sure.
Fellas, once we're all in town again for the Thunder meetup, we'll definitely have to link up and hoop again. So
you're not allowed. You're not allowed to hoop.
I am hooping. Okay.
No, with the way it's been progressing, you will literally die.
You're going to die, Dylan. You cannot do this as your friend.
If I'm Ray Allen and Joel is Patrick Beverly, then Dylan is definitely like Bill Lambier or something like after that last pickup media game.
Dylan's turning into the Greg Oden of pickup hoops. He's just the injuries are going to completely derail his career.
Don't put that on.
I'll give you Rudy Tomjanovich because the broken nose thing. That's lower accurate
next time.
If you're going to play, you need a mask. We need to put you in bubble wrap.
Richard Hamilton.
You need to not drink the water from Jerry's tap that hasn't been used in literally like 8 years.
Never again.
We need to stay away from those things.
Joel, you missed out on that one. We'll tell that one off pod.
Good. I'm glad you missed out on that one.
Let's not talk about this
now.
No. We'll definitely link up when that happens. And listeners, if you guys have not already, go to our Twitter at OKC.Thunder. That very same weekend, we are having the Topic Thunder meetup, March 21st. We will play the Charlotte Hornets. It's going to be an absolute blast. The Hornets are a very fun team, a lot of young talent, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Trey Mann, bringing back the Allen Iverson energy. You want to be a part of it. So go to our Twitter, find the link, get your tickets before they sell out, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they sell out, because the Thunder are good this year. People want to watch the Thunder. So with that being said, once again, thank you to Brandon. Thank you to Joel. Thank you to Cone and Tyranny. Thank you to listener for tapping in. The season is upon us. The next time we are podcasting, we'll be talking about a game that has been played in the regular season. So if you're in the chat, tell us how excited you are. Go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out when we go live. And until next time, hope everybody has a great night. God bless. Hooping you can. As always, Thunder up.
Thunder up.
Thunder up.